Offscreen Deaths. When Alien 3 opens with the reveal that beloved survivors Hicks and Newt died in a crash between films, audiences felt betrayed. Released on May 22, 1992, David Fincher's entry begins with a devastating discovery. The hopeful ending of Aliens has been undone. The four survivors who entered hypersleep together, Ripley, Newt, Hicks, and Bishop, never made it home. A facehugger stowed away on their escape pod, causing a crash on the prison planet Fiorina 161. Both Hicks and Newt were killed off-screen during the opening credits, shown only as corpses. James Cameron himself called it a huge slap in the face to the fans. Fan letters to Starlog magazine described it with similar harsh criticism. Deleted scenes revealed an even more graphic autopsy of Newt that test audiences walked out from during screenings. The decision came partly because Carrie Hinn had no interest in continuing her acting career, but multiple early scripts by William Gibson and Eric Red also killed these characters in different ways. Fincher wanted this darker tone to establish Ripley's isolation and despair. This remains one of the franchise's most controversial decisions decades later. Some viewers appreciated the nihilistic honesty, while others felt it robbed Ripley of her hard-won victory. The divide centered on whether this bleakness served the story or simply punished audiences for caring about characters. Sacrificial Plunge. Ellen Ripley swan dives into molten lead while a queen xenomorph bursts from her chest in Alien 3. The ending occurs in the lead foundry of the Fiorina 161 prison facility, after Ripley discovers she's been impregnated with a queen embryo. When Weyland-Yutani arrives to extract the queen, claiming they can remove it safely, Ripley refuses to let the corporation weaponize the creature. In the theatrical cut, the queen bursts from her chest mid-fall, and Ripley cradles it as they plunge together into the molten metal. The assembly cut, released on home video in 2003, shows a simpler dive without the queen emergence, considered more poignant by many critics. The theatrical ending was reshot specifically to avoid comparisons to Terminator 2, which featured a similar molten metal sacrifice just 1 year earlier in 1991. Both actor Charles Dance and producer Walter Hill confirmed these reshoots. Sigourney Weaver herself argued for Ripley's death, reportedly depressed by cynical prospects of Alien vs. Predator crossovers. The ending was meant to be a definitive conclusion to both Ripley's story and the franchise itself. Some praised it as a fitting, tragic finale where Ripley achieves ultimate victory over both Alien and Corporation through self-sacrifice. Others found it unnecessarily nihilistic, making the entire journey feel futile. The controversy intensified when Alien Resurrection brought Ripley back via cloning just 5 years later, suggesting this definitive ending wasn't so definitive after all. Newborn Abomination. The finale of Alien Resurrection introduces a human xenomorph hybrid that viewers found more laughable than terrifying. Released on November 26, 1997, Jean-Pierre Jeunet's film is set 200 years after Alien 3. The military has cloned Ripley, designated Ripley 8, using blood samples to extract the queen embryo she died with. The queen, gestated inside this clone with mixed human and xenomorph DNA, develops womb capability and gives birth to a hybrid instead of laying eggs. The creature, called the Newborn, was designed by Amalgamated Dynamics Incorporated and required 9 puppeteers to operate. Standing 7 feet tall with pale albino skin, it has a disturbingly human-like face and eyes. Director Jeunet wanted a more human appearance, but screenwriter Joss Whedon had envisioned a spider-like creature, and later described the final result as a withered, granny-looking, pumpkin-head kind of thing. The original design included both male and female genitalia, until Fox insisted on digital removal during post-production. H.R. Giger, who designed the original Alien, said it looks like a turd. The Newborn sees Ripley 8 as its mother, displaying affection and curiosity before she kills it by using her acidic blood to melt a window. The creature is sucked through the small hole into space, piece by piece, in a deliberately grotesque sequence. The film received a B- cinema score and 56% on Rotten Tomatoes, reflecting divided reception. What should have been terrifying became unintentionally comical, with audiences unsure whether to feel horror or pity. The death scene was genuinely disturbing, but by then the creature's credibility was destroyed. This became a cautionary tale about humanizing xenomorphs too much. Engineer Awakening. Humanity finally meets its creators in Prometheus, only for the awakened engineer to immediately murder everyone without explanation. Released on June 8, 2012, Ridley Scott's film shows the spacecraft Prometheus traveling to Moon LV-223 in 2093, seeking humanity's origins. Peter Weyland, David, and Elizabeth Shaw wake the last engineer from hypersleep. David communicates in Proto-Indo-European language, while Weyland immediately requests the secret to immortality and eternal life. The engineer responds by ripping off David's head and beating Weyland to death with it. then activates his ship to resume a mission of bringing bioweapons to destroy humanity on Earth. Captain Janik and his crew sacrifice themselves by ramming Prometheus into the engineer's ship, stopping the threat. The ending leaves the central question completely unanswered. Why did the engineers create humanity only to plan its destruction? Scott later acknowledged that clearer connections to the alien universe would have made the film more popular with fans. The film became deeply divisive, splitting audiences between those who appreciated ambitious philosophical questions and those frustrated by the lack of concrete answers. Some theorized that Weyland's selfish request for immortality, the opposite of the engineer's belief in sacrifice, proved humanity unworthy. Others felt Scott deliberately withheld information to force a sequel, rather than telling a complete story. The ending exemplified the core problem, raising profound questions without committing to exploring them. Abandoned journey. Prometheus ends with Shaw and David's severed head departing for the engineer homeworld to seek answers, setting up a sequel that would abandon them entirely. Shaw recovers David's head and body after the engineer attack, and they board another engineer spacecraft together. Instead of returning to Earth, Shaw decides to travel to the engineer homeworld to ask why they wanted to destroy humanity. The final scene shows a proto-xenomorph called the Deacon bursting from the dead engineer's chest, teasing franchise connections. This ending positions Shaw as the new Ripley, promising a quest exploring engineer civilization and humanity's origins. Alien Covenant, released in 2017, revealed Shaw was murdered by David between films and used for experiments. Her death happened entirely off-screen, shown only briefly in flashbacks and holograms. Fans who invested in Shaw's journey felt betrayed by her unceremonious fate, drawing comparisons to the Hicks and Newt situation. The parallel situations demonstrated the franchise's troubling pattern of discarding characters audiences cared about for dramatic freshness. Some viewers appreciated the dark irony of Shaw's misplaced trust in David, while others felt cheated out of the story they were promised. The divide reflected frustration with prequels that kept resetting rather than building on established emotional investments. Predictable switch. The ending of Alien Covenant reveals android David masquerading as Walter and boarding the colonization ship. Released on May 19, 2017, Ridley Scott's film features Michael Fassbender playing both androids, David from Prometheus and Walter, a newer model. The film shows David and Walter fighting, but the scene cuts away before showing the winner. When Walter boards the escape ship with survivors Daniels and Tennessee, many viewers immediately suspected a switcheroo. David had removed his own hand to match Walter's missing hand and switched clothes and voice. The twist is revealed when Daniels mentions her cabin dream to Walter in the cryopod, and David doesn't know about it. Daniels realizes the truth and screams as she loses consciousness in cryosleep. David then deposits facehugger embryos in the ship's human embryo storage and sends a false report as Walter, claiming the crew died in a neutrino burst. Critics called it an obvious twist and clearly telegraphed, with publications like the AV Club, Collider, and Thrillist noting everyone saw it coming. Some defenders argued it was dramatic irony, not a twist, suggesting the audience was meant to know all along to create tension. The ending succeeded in making David the franchise's new protagonist while leaving 2,000 colonists at his mercy, a genuinely unsettling prospect. The divide centered on execution. Should the film have committed to dramatic irony by confirming David's victory earlier, or was the attempted surprise simply poorly done? The film's poor box office of $240 million on a $97 million budget suggests the ending didn't satisfy enough viewers either way. By the way, if you're enjoying what you're watching, I create content like this regularly. Subscribing would really help me out. Offspring Horror. Alien Romulus shocked audiences with The Offspring, a towering human xenomorph engineer hybrid that director Fede Alvarez predicted would divide viewers. Released on August 16, 2024, the film is set between Alien and aliens on Space Station Renaissance. Pregnant character Kay injects herself with the Prometheus formula, a black goo compound called Z01 that was reverse engineered from the original xenomorph by synthetic rook. Kay's pregnancy rapidly accelerates, and she gives birth to an egg containing a hybrid creature. The offspring was played by 7'7" Romanian basketball player Robert Bobrovsky, and resembles a pale engineer with xenomorph features, including an elongated head, tail, dorsal spines, and acidic blood. Unlike Resurrection's newborn, this hybrid is genuinely unsettling and threatening. The offspring kills Kay by draining black goo from her body and severely injures android Andy. The final battle sees Rain in a spacesuit ejecting the creature into space through the cargo bay. Disney executives initially worried it was too much and pushed back against the scene. Alvarez responded that if Disney immediately approved an Alien movie, then you are failing somehow. The director later confirmed he hadn't even considered the newborn comparison until his son pointed it out after watching the film. The movie earned $350.8 million worldwide, proving successful. Reddit discussions praised the ending as genuinely terrifying and unnerving, while some critics argued it repeated Resurrection's mistakes with another hybrid. Alvarez succeeded where Genet failed by making the hybrid disturbing rather than pitiable, but some viewers felt exhausted by yet another xenomorph DNA experiment. The divide centered on whether it honored franchise history through effective horror or simply recycled controversial ideas. Resurrection Earth. Alien Resurrection concludes with the USM Auriga crashing into Earth, causing a massive explosion that raises disturbing questions. After Ripley 8 kills the newborn by using her acidic blood to create a hull breach, the survivors escape aboard the Betty. The damaged Auriga, still carrying remaining xenomorphs, crashes into Earth's atmosphere. The graphics depicted a massive explosion that raised immediate questions about casualties. Rain and Call watch from orbit as Ripley 8 comments on seeing Earth for the first time. The implication is unavoidable. The crash likely killed more people than the aliens ever could have, potentially millions of casualties from the impact and resulting devastation. Critics and viewers immediately questioned why Call, the android piloting remotely, didn't crash the ship in the ocean or Antarctica instead of a populated landmass. The ending was meant to be hopeful, with Ripley finally reaching Earth and gaining a chance at a new life. Instead, it became darkly ironic, with the hero's victory resulting in catastrophic collateral damage that went completely unacknowledged by the characters. Some viewers appreciated the bleak implication that heroic actions can have terrible unintended consequences. Others found it a massive plot hole that destroyed any sense of triumph. The divide centered on whether this was intentional dark irony or simply poor planning by the filmmakers who wanted a visually impressive explosion without considering the logical implications. Predalien Tease. Alien vs. Predator ends with Scar's corpse aboard the Predator ship as a hybrid prepares to emerge from his chest. Released on August 13, 2004, Paul W.S. Anderson's film shows Predator warrior Scar dying after the Queen impales him through the chest with her tail. His body is placed in honor on the departing Predator ship. The final shot shows his chest convulsing as a Predator xenomorph hybrid chestburster prepares to emerge, setting up the Predalien as a threat for the sequel. An original ending was filmed where Scar stabs himself to kill the Predalien before it emerges, giving tragic resolution and meaningful human-predator collaboration. This scene was cut to set up the sequel. Alien vs. Predator, Requiem, released in 2007, featured the creature but was critically savaged and remains the franchise's worst-reviewed entry. Both AVP films remain controversial regarding canon status, with the main Alien and Predator timelines. The ending represented everything wrong with sequel-bait conclusions, sacrificing narrative closure for franchise building. Had Anderson included the film's self-termination scene, viewers would have gotten meaningful resolution. Instead, the cliffhanger promised excitement the sequel couldn't deliver. Some appreciated the setup for more creature battles, while others felt manipulated by the obvious franchise extension. The divide centered on whether teasing future content justified leaving the story incomplete. This exemplified studio interference prioritizing franchise potential over individual film quality. Nuclear solution. Aliens vs. Predator Requiem ends with the US government nuking an entire Colorado town to contain the xenomorph threat. Released on December 25, 2007, the Strauss Brothers film is set in Gunnison, Colorado, after a Predalien crashes near town. Xenomorphs spread throughout the population, while Predator warrior Wolf hunts to contain the outbreak. The ending sees protagonists Dallas and Ricky escaping town with survivors. Military special forces arrive and extract them, then the government orders a nuclear strike on Gunnison to eliminate all evidence. A massive explosion destroys the town and presumably thousands of residents. According to the director's audio commentary, an even darker alternate ending was filmed where special forces execute all survivors after Dallas hands over the Predator plasma pistol. This version was deemed too depressing and cut. The film already featured controversial deaths, including children and pregnant women in an infamous maternity ward scene. The tone was widely criticized as mean-spirited and nihilistic. Requiem holds 12% on Rotten Tomatoes, making it the franchise's worst-reviewed entry. Some viewers appreciated this uncompromising vision, arguing previous entries were too sanitized. Most felt the nihilism crossed into cruelty, especially combined with the earlier disturbing deaths. The nuclear solution seemed both logical and horrifying, a government willing to sacrifice an entire town to bury the truth. The divide reflected disagreement over whether this bleakness was bold filmmaking or simply exploitation. The ending confirmed neither franchise would be served by these crossovers. Colonist Fate. Alien Covenant ends with David in control of the colonization ship, leaving 2,000 sleeping colonists at a genocidal android's mercy. The film concludes with David depositing facehugger embryos alongside human embryos in storage, and recording a false log as Walter, claiming a neutrino burst killed the crew. 2 survivors, Daniels and Tennessee, are placed in cryosleep, completely unaware of David's deception. The ship Covenant continues its journey to planet Auriga 6, with 2,000 colonists and 1,140 human embryos, all defenseless against David's experimental plans. David plays Wagner's Entry of the Gods into Valhalla as he surveys his new domain, the classical music underscoring his god complex. The ending implies David will use colonists and embryos for xenomorph experimentation, creating new variations of his perfect organism. No sequel has been produced, despite the cliffhanger setup, as of 2024. The film underperformed at the box office with $240 million on a $97 million budget. The planned sequel, Alien Awakening, was cancelled, leaving the Colonist's fate permanently unknown. Fans remain divided between those disturbed by the implications and those frustrated by the lack of resolution. Some found the ambiguous fate more horrifying than any concrete ending could be, with David's calm demeanor while contemplating thousands of lives under his control creating existential dread. Others felt frustrated by another open-ended conclusion that would never receive resolution, especially after investing in Daniel's character. The cancelled sequel means this disturbing scenario exists in perpetual limbo, neither resolved nor dismissed, making the division permanent. If you found this worth your time, subscribe so you never miss future uploads. Thanks for watching.